Hiya guys, I'm Jo Brown, Jo's Transforming Lives, and we are at the Roaches, which is in the Peak District, and it is an absolutely gorgeous location. I've got Tittleworth Rest to my left. I have to think about my left and my right because
It's over there.
it's over in that direction, and then we've got some lovely rocks behind us, and it's a gorgeous place. And I'm here with Adam Evans from
Geographically or
emotionally, business wise. We've got a combination of things. Peak changes, is it?
Yeah, I work in various formats. I think you can boil me down to personal development.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter what format I'm working in, whether it's on a Zoom call or whether it's an international expedition, it all comes under the category of developing yourself, changing yourself. Yeah, so that's who I am.
Yeah.
And this is quite nice for me to be here because this is nostalgic terrain for me. I started climbing here.
Yeah.
So I was at university in Stoke-on-Trent and I used to drive out here on a Wednesday afternoon and scrabble up the rocks. Yeah. And I still come out here, scrabble up the rocks. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah. Nice. It's my first time here, and I must admit I'll be coming back.
It's well worth it.
Definitely.
It's a great place to walk, climb, and do various outdoor activities. It's well worth the trip.
Yeah. I've seen it mentioned plenty of times, but it's just like I said, by being here, it's like wow.
Yeah. It's worth the journey.
Definitely. So we're here today to talk about behaviours and talking about where my journey has been and what I've had to do to sort of change the way my life was, because when me and Adam met in 2020, it was March 2020, I wasn't really in the best place, and I hadn't been in the best place for about 3 years at this stage. And yeah, Adam's helped me out to say the least. And I'm like, I was literally sat at home waiting for things to happen.
Yeah, that's the classic trap.
Yeah, I was sat at home believing that my life would change if I just believed it, but actually it wasn't doing, because I wasn't actually taking action. But I was actually frightened of taking the action because of the previous experiences and things. And me and Adam did some work together, and I remember him saying, "What is it you want to work on first?" And I said, "Just take this rock from my chest." Because it was an heaviness on my chest which was making me feel like I wanted to cry because it was just crushing. That right? And
it is for you.
Yeah. And then I had a lump in my throat and a knot in my stomach. And I remember us talking, but I said the heaviness on my chest was the one what was the bigger, because it just felt like it was stopping me from breathing.
And how is it now?
It doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist. It's not there anymore. We did, literally it was one session. It was one session. And I remember meeting a lady the day after, and we was talking about, she was asking me how I was. And I remember saying that I was having some sessions and that I'd had this heaviness in my chest and that it had disappeared. And I had to think, did I actually have it?
Yeah.
It was a bit of a weird...
I heard a beautiful description for that the other day, and it was from an NLP master practitioner. And it's useful for many different therapeutic change work concepts. And it's called NLP amnesia, where people actually can't remember having the problem, because sometimes the problem's gone so quickly and so easily. If it's a particular finite problem. And they can actually get almost argumentative and go, but it never was a problem. And the kind of person that's done the work with them can sit there rather frustratedly thinking, well, I don't really want to install the problem back to make sure that you knew you had it, but you did have a problem when you walked through the door and it's now gone. So that's it. And I've actually seen that in my work as well. I've seen that quite a few times. I don't have a problem. I never had a problem. You think, well, why are we here then?
That's it. But I was aware that that problem had been there, because that problem had actually been there, if I had thought back, for about, I'd say, a good 20 years. But I'd actually learned to sort of accept it. Because... And you normalise it. You sort of normalise it, because you think that there's nothing that can be done about it.
That's a trap that a lot of people fall into, and it's simple to fall into it. Being uncomfortable is normal. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe that we should have the ability to cope with discomfort. But if you're in a chronic state of uncomfortable emotional presence,
There's
whatever
a
better
there's
description.
a difference feeling of uncomfortable. Like I said, this is a constant. You're not getting a breather from it, which it's just literally it is there in your life, and you just feel that is all that you're living with. It's whereas when we go into uncomfortable, I say we have to be
take a breath.
Comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The heaviness in the chest, it was like having a rock on my chest. It was a rock on my chest, and it literally felt like if you feel like a vice, and it was just you just could not breathe. I wasn't breathing fully, but like I said, I'd had that for such a long time and carried it, and like I said, it was
a lot of people do.
Yeah, and it was here.
A lot of people have long-term, you could say, emotional baggage that demonstrates itself by a physical sensation. Sickness, illness, fatigue. There's many different ways for a person to demonstrate a long-term chronic stress or anxiety. And so many people will go through life doing absolutely nothing about it, and they'll live a very small and very compressed life, which that kind of sensorial experience they're having, that somatic experience they're having, will inhibit them, and they won't get things done that they really want to do, but they're too intimidated by it or held back by it because of this internal experience.
It's like mine, because it was like an anxiety thing. It did develop into a chronic illness. It did, well, not a chronic illness. It developed into an autoimmune disease, and which literally then that had its repercussions on other parts of my life. So ignoring them feelings and not acknowledging them and thinking it was okay actually was really the wrong.
So you reached what was commonly referred to as threshold. You reached the point where you basically said, something's got to change. It's got to be me that's changing, because I can't control anything else in the entire universe except for myself. So something's got to change, it's got to be me. And after a period of time, you got to the point where you say it's got to happen now. Not I'll do it in 6 months, I'll do it in 6 weeks. It's, I'm sick of this, it's holding me back, and I'm missing out on life.
The thing is, I had ignored it, and I had ignored it to the detriment of myself and my life, because I literally, I make a joke of this, that I actually pressed the red button and blew my life up, and everything was destroyed. My marriage, my work life, and everything. It was just literally all gone, all because I had these feelings what I was ignoring, and I wasn't dealing with them. So
that's classic. That's an absolute classic. Everybody, people who have got we'll call it an emotional dysfunction, is probably the simplest way to put it. Something's not right running emotionally, and that could be to do with the environment they're living in currently, their work, a relationship, or it could be from stuff from the past. That dysfunction will show itself in various different ways. It will show it with self-sabotage, pressing the big red button, and quitting the job, or breaking down a stable relationship. Or it could form itself in being avoidant, people isolating themselves and just not interacting with the rest of the world.
Well, I think that's what at the stage I got to in 2019, between 2017 and 2019. That was avoiding contact with people. I literally was staying at home, and
the other classic is avoiding people or sabotaging working relationships. And the other classic that most people know about is some form of addiction. Whether it be drink or drugs, which are the classic ones to go for,
or shopping,
or shopping. There you go. That's really beautiful.
I was the shopper.
The other one is there's many of them. People get involved in sex because they're not. There's nothing wrong with sex, but if you're just using it to desensitize yourself and keep away from situations, that's bad. Or the new one that's quite prevalent these days is computer games and gambling. I'll just go and gamble, or I'll isolate myself and play a computer game. Again, there's nothing wrong with computer games. It's if you're spending days and days doing it. So people demonstrate these emotional dysfunctions in many different ways. And for you, it was
shopping.
You were shopping.
Ended up, if I had money, I'd spend it. And it was just it'll make me feel better. But actually, once it had been spent and I'd got that item, then the feelings were still there, and then emotions were still there.
Which is really interesting, because we've had this conversation before about how people will feel down,
Yeah.
emotionally dysfunctional, depressed, anxious. You can put so many different labels on, we'll call it negative feelings, and they will use very short-term, very transient ways of dealing with it. And they'll go through having spikes of happiness and or depression in their life, and they'll use it on the easy ways of doing things, like well, they'll go shopping,
Yeah.
or I'm feeling really down, I'll go and get my hair done.
Yeah.
Okay, but your hair and your nails and your makeup and oh my god, all these things that have cost you hundreds of pounds because you're doing something on the outside of yourself to make your inside feel better.
But
And within days it's changed.
yeah, well, that's it. It literally, because I'd do the spending, the item would arrive, and then them feelings would still be there. And like I said, it was crazy, absolutely crazy.
And the other one
is
is materialism. So people will go and spend tens of thousands of pounds on things to make them feel better in the short term.
Yeah.
I go, oh, I really need a new car. You don't need a new car at all.
No.
They'll go and spend 40 grand on a nice new car.
Yeah.
They don't need that at all. Or I'll feel better when I've got the new phone.
Yeah.
Well, your phone was working perfectly well, but yet once I've got the iPhone level 10.3 with all the bells and whistles on it, I'll feel better.
Yeah.
And then if you actually chart that level of happiness, it drops off incredibly quickly.
Yeah.
Within days of having the phone, it just becomes a phone.
Well, that's it. The other thing, why should we talk about that? What came to mind is these people in high-flying jobs as well, that they actually get that addiction to being high-flying. And I would question sometimes, and I've had a conversation with somebody about this, and I believe some of these people are actually, again, I believe there probably is some kind of emotional that they're trying to prove and validate, some of them, and they're pushing themselves to the extreme where they can't.
Not all high
Not
flyers.
all flyers, not all high flyers, but I believe some will possibly be doing, especially the ones I think who end up in the cardio route, because obviously then they've had the stress. They've had high degrees of stress, so you're possibly not living.
The way to kind of evaluate whether someone's emotionally dysfunctional is looking at the quality of their entire life.
Yeah.
Not just their bank balance.
No.
Oh, I'm a high flyer, I've got hundreds of thousands of X's in the bank.
Yeah.
Well, that might be so, but you might have, several divorces behind you.
Yeah.
You might not know your kids,
No.
and you might be known as, as the dick at work.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different ways to evaluate success. So not all high flyers.
No.
And you need to kind of evaluate the whole quality,
The quality of the
someone's
life. But like I said, it's one thing what does stand out to me, because that was one of the things I was probably doing, is to try and prove to myself that I was good and I was able, and to get validation I was pushing myself, which is not a bad thing about challenging yourself with things. I'm not saying that it is bad, it's just the reasons why you do it.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
the reasons why you're doing it.
We have to chunk up.
Yeah.
Chunk up why you're doing this.
Yeah.
And what will that give you?
Yeah.
And what will that give you?
Yeah.
What will that give you?
Yeah.
And eventually you can boil up to some simple things that everybody wants to be wanted, loved and cared for.
Yeah.
And the £50,000 car, the new iPhone, and the seventh promotion is really not going to give you that.
No.
But I'm not saying don't strive for things in life to make your life better.
No.
You need to have a balance is the key word.
Yeah, definitely.